Good morning, guys. Today is March 13th, and the reading for today with the Thrive study plan is the book of Judges. And it actually broke down chapter 16 into two parts, but then it jumped again all the way to like the next Bible book. So it skipped a lot of the other chapters. So instead of doing it that way, I did the full book of the full chapter of 16 today. And I'm glad I did because this is a story that we're all so familiar with. But I think that so many things kind of get put together that I really appreciated the fact that I was able to like just look at this chapter in its entirety because it actually caused me to like go back and try to get further clarification and understanding when it comes to the things of Samson because it opens up like I know a lot of times when I think of the Bible verse of Samson and Delilah, I always thought that Delilah was a prostitute. And I think that the confusion for me is because when it opens up in chapter 16, it says that he spent the night with a prostitute. And that was like how the chapter opens up. And it shows that as he was in there and he was asleep, because remember, the Philistines were still in power, but at the same token, Samson was causing such problems for them. Like he was a problem because he was somebody who could not be defeated. So even though he didn't remove them and overthrow them, he was definitely a problem for them. So, right? So I think that what they wanted to do, the men of the town, was they were always looking for a way to get him. So when he spent the night with the prostitute, it was like they were trying to wait until the morning because they wanted to ambush him. But it shows that he got up at midnight and he took hold of the doors of the town gate, including the two posts, and lifted them up, bar and all, and he put them on his shoulders and carried them all the way to the top of the hill across from Hebron. So I think in so many ways, that was like a big slap in the face and super insulting because it's almost like a man that you're trying to figure out how you can destroy him literally because he has this great power and it's like you see an opportunity, but in the middle of that opportunity you see that okay, I'm not dealing with somebody anyway. So then it goes on to the fact that now he meets Delilah, and this is a woman that he falls in love with. And so once the man of the town realized that he fell in love like with Delilah, they saw Delilah as an opportunity to get to him. So they asked her to entice him and to figure out where he gets his strength from. And one of the things that it shows is that they said that each of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver. So it's one of those things, it suggests that there was plural, that there was a good amount of people. And so that 1,100 pieces of silver was going to be multiplied. So it was one of those things where we see that they saw her as an opportunity to get this person that's a thorn in their side, a great torment to them. But at the same token, it was going to be a way that she was going to be able to greatly change her living circumstances. So there was a fortune attached to what she was asked to do. Um, but it's just really interesting to me because it just seemed like that would lead her to be like the first definition that I thought she was, like a prostitute. But it's just showing that there's a difference, and I think it's important that the difference is pointed out. That's all. So one of the things that she began to do is she began to work on Samson. And it shows, like, she asked him, please tell me what makes you so strong and what it would take to tie you up securely. So it was one of those things where it was like the question was like a question that would kind of make somebody think. And then it was like Samson's response just kind of showed, to his character. Because we saw earlier, like when he told the riddle to the guys, um, you know, about something being honey and something being sweet. It was one of those things where he knew certain things that people could not figure out. And he knew that his secret was something that kind of gave him power in different situations. Like when it came to the brothers, it was about acquiring things. You know what I'm saying? And so this time, it's one of those things where he just knew that that was something that nobody would ever know unless he told them. So it became, I'm going to say, and this is my opinion, Lord Jesus, it became like a way for him to hold on to his secret, but still play with her. And so you see her asking him the same question, and it was always like she came from him from like a soft place, like because it was like things like she pouted, and then she would say like, "Oh, you don't love me because you making a fool of me," basically. But it was like she did it in this way that just had like a softness attached to it. So I feel like in so many ways, Samson saw like, as a way that they kind of a back and forth. Like, oh, this is a great secret that she really wants to know. Who knows? I could be so wrong, but this is just how I'm looking at it. And again, that's why I say, please, please, please read the word for yourself, right? But one of the things that it shows is that after she did it so many times, and she made it about him not sharing his secrets as a sign that he didn't love her. And the way it opened up was that he did love her because he fell in love with her. That was how the whole story opens up, right? So now it's almost like as they're going, and she starts to nag him. And it says she tormented him with nagging day after day until he was sick to death of it. So it was one of those things where she knew what she had to gain by gaining his secret, and she began and doing it in like a loving, like a more caring way, because that was her ultimate purpose, was to get the secret. It doesn't say anything else about her actually falling in love with him, them starting a family, like all of the things that would normally happen, like when love was in the air. We don't see nothing about that, but we see her as somebody who knew her assignment, and she used what she knew to her ability to try to get it. And when it didn't work that way, then she started to torment him with the nagging. And that was something that we learned in the other chapters, that like Samson was somebody who it really like stressed him out to be nagged. That was actually one of the things that kind of separated him from the first woman that he was supposed to marry. So it says that he finally told her, and it says finally, he shared his secret with her. And one of the things that what he shared was that my hair has never been cut, for I was dedicated to God as a Nazarite from birth. And if my head was shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become weak as anyone else. So now Delilah realized, wow, he actually told me the truth. And so she lulled him to sleep with his head on her lap, because I think in so many ways it's like if she's nagging him and is tormenting him, now that she got what she wanted, she knows to go back and be now this other person that allows her to lull this great man to sleep. And then she finally went and she told him, like, this time I really have his secret, because what happened was every time he gave her a secret, the men would be there hiding, waiting to be able to come out and grab him. And it almost seems like before the men could show themselves, he would rip away, because she would say something like, "Oh, the Philistines are upon us." and he would break away, but it never shows him interacting with the Philistines. And that's something again. Don't know if he did, don't know if he didn't, but I'm just saying what I'm reading and how I'm understanding it. So it was like this time when she went and got them, then she really had to convince him, like, no, this time it's real. He really gave me the secret. Like, come back, basically like we got him. And so she lulled him to sleep. But one of the things that it said was that she called in a man to shave off the 7 locks of his hair. In this way, she began to bring him down. And it says, and his strength left him. So it's so many different things involved in this one action. Like this was the setup from the very beginning because his secret was his prize to his great strength. And so he allowed somebody in, access. And she obviously didn't know anything about covenant, but then it made me wonder, like, what did Samson really understand about his covenant with God? Because him like keeping away from alcohol, his mom, and then him, letting his hair grow into never put a thing represented his covenant with God. And it was like, but that part he just associated with this great strength that he knew he was able to go and to torment people, right? Because it does list Samson as a judge. But one of the things that I realized too is that the difference with Samson and the other judges is that you would see God giving them power and that they were destroying and removing their enemies. But it was one of those things when God talked about Samson at the birth, he said that God, he will begin to rescue Israel from the Philistines. So Samson was almost like the beginning of something, but he wasn't the one to fully rescue them from the Philistines. Like the Philistines was still going to be there, but he was given this great power to show that, in so many ways that God was still with the people, but it seems like Samson didn't really understand his covenant. And so it was like once they did it, then it shows that as soon as they got him, they immediately gouged out his eyes. It's so many different ways to go with that because these men have been waiting to overtake this man for quite some time. And it's one of those things now that they see that he's actually weak and he's able to overtake them. The first thing they do is they take away his eyes. The second thing they do now is they take him for whatever strength he still has left and they bring him back and put chains on him and now they make him work. So now he's out there pulling grain, toiling for them. And so it's like they made this great man of God into a slave that now actually worked for them. And so, being that this was such a great, defeat for them, that one of the things that they kind of thought was and this was them paying homage to their God because they said our God has given us victory over our enemy Samson. Samson was a real enemy for them. And so one of them thought it would be amusing to now bring Samson out in his chains, right? And before that, it says that, but before long, his hair began to grow back, right? And it's like sometimes we get so caught up in the things that we have or the things that we know that God gave us. But it was one of those things that I think it was more about covenant than it had anything to do with his hair. But the hair was something that God said was sacred. And it was a representation of the covenant that he made with Samson and Samson's family, right? That had been honored up until that day. So, one of the things that it shows is that, when they were leading him in, because now he's still blind. So, in reality, it's one of those things he really has no idea fully of what's going on. But he said, place my hands against the pillars that hold up the temple. So this is a man that picked up a gate and some posts, and he was able to carry it for some distance up a hill. So, as something, he knew the strength that was inside of him. And then it shows that he prayed. He prayed. He said, Then Samson prayed to the Lord, Sovereign Lord, remember me again. Oh God, please strengthen me just one more time. So it was in that instance that he came to terms with where his strength really came from. And it was always from God. And so it was one of those things like he recognized that even though he fell out of covenant with God, he was able to get back in with that prayer. And it showed that when he was able to do that, and he said, Let me die with the Philistines, that he pushed against the pillars with both hands. But it didn't matter that he was using his hands, he was using his God given strength to move something that in his own strength wasn't possible. And in using his God given strength to move those pillars, it shows that he killed more people when he died than he had during his entire life. It said that Samson had judged Israel for 20 years. And I just think that this is such a good thing, or like a segue into showing now, God's relationship with his people, but God's willingness to still be there. It's almost like, but you have to acknowledge him as sovereign. You have to understand his covenant. You have to also understand his will and his desire. Because it was like when Samson killed those people, these were still the people that was tormenting God's people. So it was one of those things where he was able to have this last victory because he got a glimpse of why he was who he was. And it was all because of what God had given him. So he used that as this great last stance to go ahead and take out all of these people. So, chapter 16, amazing. Take the time, read it. I had to go back and I had to look at when God talked to his parents. I had to go back and look about how God said he was going to use Samson when it came to the Philistines. I had to look back, and just see different things. And I actually went on L Google, not really looking, they didn't give me the answer I was looking for, but it was just one of those things that I really enjoyed this time in this one chapter today. And I pray that you guys do the same. So have a blessed day and see you tomorrow where we'll finish up Judges.